This video has been sponsored by Skillshare. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description below will get a 2-month free trial of a premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Today we're going to be showcasing the elusiveness that is the build of Tall. Yes, that's right. Building Tall is a experience on its own, and I highly recommend for you to try it someday. The one thing here, however, is that it's kind of impossible to do without having either utopia or federations, and that has to do with the type of habitation that we're going to be building en masse in this particular build. However, we're going to go over the basics today. First, we'll be doing all the setup for it, what is important, and then we're going to go into a few examples. Let's dive right into it, shall we? Let's build Tall. Now, building Tall really starts off on the Empire creation screen. If we go into our nice little Empire of Earth, because I am the most creative person on the internet, there's a couple of very important things here that you may want to keep in mind. These are merely suggestions though, but they will help quite a lot. First of all, we're going to need to take a look at the wonders of our type of government as well as our ethics. I really like to go for the Imperial with Tall, specifically because of the additional edict capacity. We will get that with Dictatorial as well, but the edict cost modifier of -20% that we can get with oligarchies as well as the democratic setup is not really all that useful, because by the mid-game we are going to be swimming in influence, and the amount of influence that we can spend is kind of limited. Therefore, having an additional edict is really useful whilst not going over our empire sprawl, which I feel is rather important. In addition, in terms of civics, diplomatic corps is really starting to be the #1 choice in almost every single scenario. That has mainly to do with the influence that you can have on other empires as well as the galactic community. Keeping anybody at bay who is your neighbor by sending envoys in their general direction is incredibly useful. And the more envoys you have, the better of a bonus you can have to your relationships to your neighbors, which is rather useful. In addition, this will be a high-tech build, which means that we are going to need to be a fanatic materialist. Robot upkeep -20% is huge because we want to get as many pops as possible, as is standard, as well as the research speed +10%, which cannot be overstated on how good it is. In addition, the rest is pretty much up to grasp. You can do whatever you want. You can go for the militarist path if you want to get a lot of vassals around you. You can be xenophobe for those star-based influence cost modifier. Not that you're going to need it, because you're going to be playing relatively small, but the pop growth speed is very, very nice. In this particular case, we are going to go with xenophile because of the trade value modifier as well as the available envoys. Envoys, of course, to basically influence our neighbors, but also the trade value is nice to get more consumer goods, or if we want to go into a trade league, get even more unity, etc. So all this stuff is really, really nice to have. In terms of additional civics, Byzantine, the bureaucracy is the one that I picked in this particular case because of the unity and stability bonus. Bureaucrats are actually kind of nice, especially if you start building quite a lot of them. But other options here, of course, with which are nice is, for instance, mining guilds for the additional minerals from miners, which is rather nice. Origin-wise, prosperous unification is usually a good way to go. Mechanist is also really, really nice because of the robots that you can get, as well as an additional bonus to robot upkeep. It really synergizes very, very nicely with materialist, but in this particular case, we're going to go with prosperous unification because we will get additional districts on our capital world, and on top of that, we will get 4 additional pops to man those additional districts. But yeah, when it comes to general setup for playing Tall, Mechanist is usually quite good. All the other ones is really just flavor. You don't really need to go for it, unless of course you're hive minds or robots, then Tree of Life, and of course the resource consolidation is a very, very nice bonus. Of course, you can also go for the wonders of the Void Dwellers, which is the ultimate in building Tall, but we will touch upon those at a later time. Of course, we're going to need to talk about traits as well, because traits is what makes the species, and that right there is pretty important. First of all, rapid breeders, because we will have tons of habitats and planets, and any sort of place that we can grow more pops is something that we want to speed up, and therefore rapid breeders with that plus 10% bonus is pretty darn good. And then unruly, of course, which adds the modifier, the negative modifier of adding empire sprawl, but due to the magnificence of bureaucrats, this no longer impacts things whatsoever. We can just plop an entire planet or habitat down full of bureaucrats, because the bureaucracy must grow to meet the ever-needing expansion of the bureaucracy. And finally, those 2 points that we're going to get from that are we going to spend on intelligent, because an intelligent species is a strong species. You know what an intelligent species does as well? Well, they learn with Skillshare, which is an online learning community for creative and curious people where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journeys. Skillshare classes include a combination of video lessons as well as class projects, and they are fitted to your schedule and skill level. Members get unlimited access to thousands of inspiring classes with hand-on projects and feedback from a community of millions. If you are feeling in a learning mood after watching my video and you want to use your time effectively by exploring new topics, then Skillshare may be something for you. Explore workshops, classes, and more. I myself have been struggling with some productivity issues lately, and Skillshare specifically had some classes for that, and it catered quite nicely to the subject. Maybe you want to learn to improve your skills in Premiere, which is the software that I use to make these videos. Well, maybe that. Or you want to learn some UI design so that you can understand why game developers make decisions in their games that may or may not always be too logical. For instance, there is this one class called the Intro to UAX, the Fundamentals of Usability by Marika McCloskey, where in 80 minutes the basics of good user interface is outlined. She also discusses both theory and practical applications, which is always handy to know. Now, in this particular class may not necessarily be for you, but however, Skillshare has tons of other classes specifically curated for learning. There are no ads, and there's always new content for you to bite your teeth into. And it's less than $10 a month if you get the annual subscription. And remember, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Starting wise is going to be pretty bog standard here. We're going to need to make sure we have the right researchers though, because right now we just don't have the right ones, which is a bit of a problem. We want to get that Voidcraft engineering up and running as soon as possible, but also we want to get computing as well as the wonders of biology, and maybe if we can a industrial one as well. But yeah, we already have an opening in carrier operations in Voidcraft, and that is going to be our main alleyway here. So let's go and get that set up, and let's get the society research up and running as well as the physics research, because those are all bonus modifiers that will have knock-on effects in the late game. And of course, as is standard, we're going to go and get rid of all of our food and all of our consumer goods because we're nicely in the plus on those, and it gives us a nice little pool of money to work with. Now let's get a couple leaders here. Let's see if we can get one. We can get, particles, industrial, and field manipulation. Sadly, in the perfect world, we would get a Voidcraft engineer, but a plus 22 is nice. So we're just going to go and replace this one with this one over here, and they will start teching up the industry. At least they will start learning quite quickly, and we'll have an extra scientist later on that we can use to man our additional science ship that we are about to build. So let's go and do that, and let's start looking around our space. Now, we are in a very nice little pocket here, and we're gonna go and try to colonize this little region over here. This is a very nice little startup area, but sadly we don't have access to a black hole. A black hole is really important because it means in the late game we can build a matter decompressor, and we definitely want one of them. So we're gonna need to be able to claim this black hole over here, and until if there is one nearby somewhere else, I don't see anything, then well, this one is gonna be the one that we're gonna need to use. Let's put it that way. Now, thankfully, we managed to roll the Space Miner trait on our leader, which means that our mining stations are a lot cheaper, and we're going to be using that to get as much energy as possible, because leaders have a relatively high upkeep of 2 energy per month, so we want to make sure that we offset that quite early on. In addition, the additional space technology that we can get, or at least the science, is always nice as well. We're going to try to push out as many science ships as we can early on in the game, and what kind of anomaly did we find there? Ooh, a presence of some kind of life in a biosphere. Yeah, that sounds like gas communists to me, but it doesn't really matter because events are good because it will give, well, the usual wonders of experience on our leaders, and that's something that we definitely want. We've managed to figure out that there is a black hole over here. It is within range, and so this particular area over here is going to be one of our key areas. So where are we going to set up our choke nodes? I was thinking over here and potentially over here, as well as finally over here, just so that we have at least one lane of star lane behind us, as well as a bit of potential of getting a few more planets down the line. Planets are pretty good, let's put it that way. Now, the following choice is rather important, whether or not we are going to go for the Discovery Traditions or the Expansion Traditions. Expansion Traditions, whilst not necessarily the most favorable one for playing tall, finishing Expansion Traditions does give us an additional bonus to get the potentially very interesting habitat technology. So if we go full expansion, we will have a 0.1%, or at least say 1.5% chance, at least 100%, yeah, 1.5 is what the modifier is, chance of getting habitats early on, which is really, really good. However, we want to go full tech in this one, so we're going to go for Discovery, because we will get the joys of
Situation log has been updated.
we will get the joys of being able to survey faster, as well as checking up our leaders a lot quicker. So leader experience gain plus 25% is a huge deal, and we definitely want to do that. Then it comes time to pick our very first building that we're going to be building on our capital world, and that's going to be relatively straightforward. It is going to be an alloy foundry. We want to pump out as many alloys as possible. Thankfully, due to the bonus to materialist, we already have a bunch of science bonuses already. So the alloy foundries will not really impact all of our science production. Sure, we won't have those scientists working on the planet, but it's something that we can live with. In the meantime, we're also going to remove the sprawling slums on our capital world for 1 free pop, which is always nice, and we get the Grenure, which is completely useless to us. Because, well, we don't necessarily need that. We did find 2 planets over here in the Alpha Centauri system, which is nice. However, in a perfect world, if you can roll, if you have the luck at least, to roll the Cybrex or the First League, then you're pretty much in the gold, because Cybrex will give you a nice route to Mega Engineering, whereas the First League will give you a free Ecumonopeleis, which is always nice. Sadly, in this particular case, we got a bunch of continental worlds over here, as well as our capital world. We can turn those into Gaia worlds for maximum production capacity, which is really good. So we're gonna go down there, and we're just gonna pump out a bunch of Gaia worlds within our very, very tall empire.
System survey.
Now, since we have managed to survey our first habitable world over here in Alpha Centauri, it's a size 18, which is nice. It is bleak though, but thankfully the Grenure will offset that quite nicely. It's time to build our first colony ship. Yes, we are going to build a colony ship off the get-go, without even colonizing the system in general, as in claiming it for ourselves. Why are we doing this? Well, it means that we can do some fast building. Basically means that as soon as we've claimed the system, we can slap down that colony immediately without having to wait on the wonders of,
System survey concluded.
Having to build a colony ship, which is going to take a full year to do so. So we completely want to avoid that. So basically we can skip a year of colonization, which is something that is really nice and we definitely want. And there it is, we've managed to get our first Voidcraft scientist. We immediately are going to hire that person, and we are going to slap them on our science immediately. So there they are now on the science. Let's quickly pop over, and they should get a nice little bonus of 22% because, of course, oh wait, hold on, they did not actually take. Let's do it like this.
Anomalous readings
That
registered.
should do everything nicely. Yeah, okay, so now we got a 37% bonus. In the meantime, we got a couple of other scientists just floating around. It's not going to be particularly useful to have some of these. We're just going to put this genius scientist on here because it's going to give us a nice bonus to tech as well, which is rather nice. But yeah, getting this hangar bay up and running is really important because we want to go to the next stage in Voidcraft. So sooner or later, you will need to pick your first Ascension perk. Now, the second one we already know. It's going to be Voidborn. However, the first one is, in fact, going to be Technological Ascendancy. Probably one of the better ones in the game. What does it do? It gives us a +10 research speed, and of course, rare technologies will now appear faster than the normal rate, which is really nice because it means that we can get technologies quicker, at least the ones that we want to have, because some of the ones that we want are in fact rare technologies. Because we're playing tall, it also means that we have a lot of influence to spend on secondary projects. And what would those projects be? Well, we can put them into edicts, we can put them into habitats, but there is something else that we can do with these resources, and that is the following. There is a derelict megastructure over here, and specifically it is a ruined matter decompressor. Now, normally we would be too far away from said matter decompressor to do anything with it, and on top of that, this particular system, and I noticed already, has a enemy empire inside of it. So what do? Well, we just send our construction ship over there and just build an outpost in the system. It's going to cost us a gargantuan amount of influence. However, when it comes to space and specifically resources from derelict megastructures, they are incredibly good, mainly because of, in this particular case, we have a potential ruined matter decompressor, which is going to give us 2,000 minerals per tick. But on top of that, we can always build a second one somewhere else, like in this here singularity system down here. On top of that, because we have the ruined megastructure, we will get a bonus to getting mega engineering itself, which means that we will have an easier time rebuilding it. Now, in this particular case, it will cost us 12,000 alloys to actually rebuild this particular structure, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. Are we going to change towards that in terms of like territory? No, we're going to stick into our little bubble over here and not expand all that much beyond this point. Only, we've kind of set our borders already. We'll probably grab these 3 systems over here, fill in the gaps here, fill in the gaps there, but that will be it. And from there on, it's time to look towards the future and into those habitats. Now, before we actually get to said habitats, we need to get something else out of the way, and that is first contact situations. As you can see, if we go into these guys who we've just made first contact with, they are currently harming our relations. And that is rather bad. Thankfully, they are only running nationalistic zeal and mining guilds. And in the long run, these guys could be a serious problem because they are in fact overwhelming. However, because they're overwhelming, they cannot rival us at this moment in time. Which means, by leveraging the amazingness of our diplomatic corps, we can just send all of our wonderful envoys over here, send them over and become bestest buddies. In addition to that, we want them to be able to not attack our black hole because we want to keep that matter decompressor for as long as we can, hopefully all the way to the end game, and get a gateway in there just so that we can deploy our fleets rather rapidly. At this stage, it's time to go for our second tradition tree. In this particular case, it's going to be expansion. Now, this seems to be a little bit counterintuitive because expansion is really catered to those large, sprawling empires, at least at first glance. However, due to some modifiers in the code, which I've already alluded to earlier on, expansion actually gives you a bonus to getting the habitat tech once you finished it. So yeah, if you finished the expansion tree, you will get a bonus on being able to get habitat technology. So going expansion is actually really important because it gives you a better shot at getting said habitat technology, which in combination with our Voidcraft expertise scientists will give us a bigger and bigger chance. We're going to be stacking those chances over time in order to get that habitat technology. Speaking of technology, the most important one you're going to be watching out for is Starhold. Starhold is a quote-unquote gateway technology, which allows to go to the next tier of star bases as well as the next tier of ships, but it also is the tier that is the gateway to habitats. Starholds is really, really important. If you see Starholds, make sure you grab that particular technology. It is incredibly useful and you need to have it. It's a prerequisite for habitats. So once you see it, make sure you grab it. Now, once you've finally properly established yourself and you have a nice look around the galaxy, see what's going on, and the galactic community has in fact been formed, it's a good idea to take a quick gander whether or not there are any marauders nearby, and in this particular case, there are, because if you're bordering marauders, you can get special events from them that will give you resources, etc. So make sure you have that. In addition, we are now 56 years into the game, and we now have access to habitat technology, and that will become available in 51 months. Now, this is 56 years into the game, which may be a little bit late, but thankfully we have a large amount of alloys ready to go when it comes to getting our habitats down. In addition, we've got a lot of influence that can also take care of that. So it's really a good idea to, once the first 40 of the 50 months are up, just to get 2 construction ships on standby and get ready to plop down your first habitats. Usually it's a good idea to get them around these any sort of research tiles on normal planets, or minerals or energy if that's what you need. Make sure that you don't plop them down on planets that don't have any special resources, because you will not get access to any of their special habitat districts. So as I mentioned, we are currently building those habitats here, one around Venus, which obviously has that one of those tech modifiers, and the other one around Neptune for some energy, because we need those resources. At this stage, you will also start to get into some problems with consumer goods, and thankfully, the habitats will be able to actually deal with that. We have a large amount of minerals in our bank, and depending on what you're playing, let's say you're playing with lithoids, you're going to have no problem dealing with any of this stuff. The real problem right now is our alloy income. And how do we want to deal with this? Well, first of all, most of our habitats' first buildings are either going to be pop growth buildings, such as robotic research labs, or alloy foundries, and that will offset any of our alloy income as well as long-term growth potential. Once our habitats are complete, and as you can see here, we got Thea and Serendipity over here, it's a good idea to go and check them out, and more importantly, see that you will most likely not have these 2 slots available, these 2 building slots, that is. Why is that the case? Well, we have immediately picked our second ascension perk, which is Voidborn. Now, Voidborn is a must-have when you're playing tall, specifically in the habitat build. The more pops you can have in a game, the easier it is to build an economy, to get a tech base, and more importantly, win in the long run. The more construction sites you have in space or breeding grounds for your pops, the better it is. And Voidborn really ties into that. First of all, habitat habitability, 20% bonus. Very, very good. Then on top of that, every single habitat will have 2 additional building slots, and that's something that I talked about earlier on. But the most important part of this is that we immediately will get access to the advanced habitat upgrade. Why is this important? Well, basic habitats only have 4 district slots, and that can be very, very constraining. As soon as this place is completely full, we're going to run into serious trouble. Therefore, we're going to need to continue building more and more habitats and basically fill them full with alloy plants and just start spamming them everywhere. Just be aware that it's a good thing to always be efficient and always build them on planets that have resources native to them. Sooner or later, you will have your advanced habitats up and running, but you won't be able to deploy them just yet. Because, well, as you can see here, even though in this particular place we could deploy them if we had enough alloys for it, but if we look at our second habitat here, it is not ready to go just yet. It is completely redded out. Why is that the case? Well, we are not using all of our districts just yet. So we're going to need to build 2 more districts on this particular habitat, and then, once it's built, we will get access to the upgrade habitat option. But in addition to that, because we are condensing all of our population to very small areas of space, it is usually a good idea to build the following building, and that is the Deep Space Black Site. Now, the Deep Space Black Site is part of the Living State technology. Not only will you be able to build the Deep Space Black Site, but also you will get additional influence from factions, which is really good. But most importantly, it will improve government ethics attraction, as well as stability to every single habitable place within your system. So Deep Space Black Sites are incredibly good. I would highly recommend you to build them in even your normal playthrough or in your wide playthrough, etc. But when you're playing tall, not using them would be a real shame, because you got so many pups condensed into one system, and it's incredibly useful to have their stability increase just passively by building that Deep Space Black Site. Sadly, due to our relatively low Unity growth in this particular playthrough, we did not get all that much tradition tree stuff done. We're only on our third perk. It's only, it's 76 years in, so we're relatively slow. However, we are massively ahead of everybody else when it comes to technology. And that means that we can start picking our ascension paths. Now, what is a good ascension path these days? Is robot good? Is psionic good? Is genetic engineering good? I'm personally catering towards genetic engineering, basically because of the immense pop growth that it can have. Specifically, using a genetic engineered evolution, we will get automatic access to a very, very important building, and that is, of course, the following. And that would be on the cloning vats. The cloning vats will increase pop growth speed on planet by 33%, which is a huge, huge bonus, and we should immediately start plopping all of them down, preferably even as your very first building on a brand new habitat. If you can build one, you should build one, because their ability to fill up your pop slots and the jobs is unmatched. So yeah, build those cloning vats. Go down engineering of the genetic variety. Now, as you may have noticed so far, alloys are the key to any sort of tall builds, including habitats. But spamming habitats everywhere and just putting alloy foundries on there may be a good way of dealing with things. However, there is one particular planet type in the game that is beyond none, bar none, the best alloy producer that is available. And I've already selected it. It is, of course, the Ecumonopeleis. By getting an archaeology project up and running and being able to build an Ecumonopeleis, you will be able to crank out insane amounts of alloys. And playing tall like this, when it's a mixture of planets and as well as habitats themselves, it is a really good idea to do this, especially if it's on a slightly larger planet, like a size 18, because you will have so many alloy foundries available, at least from the districts themselves. Of course, you can do the same thing for the consumer goods as well as the leisure districts, and you will get so many resources. So yeah, when you're playing tall, you really want to put all your eggs in that Ecumonopeleis basket and just roll with it, because it is so good. Now, you may say, alright, ASpec, that's nice and all, building an archaeology project or an Ecumonopeleis, but aren't you going to have serious problems filling up that particular Ecumonopeleis? Well, yes and no. First of all, we have cloning vats everywhere, and they'll be providing all the pops that we need for said Ecumonopeleis. However, the real problem here is moving all those pops to said Ecumonopeleis. Thankfully, the game comes with something rather nice, which is, of course, called Greater Than Ourselves. If we go into the galactic community, and specifically the resolutions under the greater good, there is Greater Than Ourselves, which is currently active, because for the entire game I've been working towards this, and you should be doing the same, because playing tall means that you will have nearly unlimited power in terms of the Senate. And that's right, you'll be able to leverage your power in the Senate as well as your soft power in general to work your way towards Greater Than Ourselves. It is so good, it is amazing, you should definitely pick it up, because once you activate it, look at all these pops that are currently without jobs. Well, let's go over here and select Greater Than Ourselves. Oh, by the way, remember that bit when I said about the type of government that we should have, the Imperial? Yeah, Edict Capacity +1 comes in very handy right now, because now we don't have any additional issues because we picked up another Edict. But our pups should now be starting to rotate back and forth towards places that they find interesting. And yeah, basically as soon as the Horizon Ecumonopeleis is up and running, they should all start to flock over, at least if there's no jobs on their planets, which is exactly what we want. All of these habitats are all designed and set up in such a way that, well, they're just generating pops 24/7. In some cases, we'll even have entire habitats that are completely catered to just cranking out pops. And then by that, I mean there is just going to be a cloning vat on there, as well as the wonders of the gene clinics and its +1 building. Because what you get out of that is approximately 66% on your pop growth, in addition to our already rapid breeder bonus, which is +10. And once we go for, you know, genetic mastery, we can go even more ham with that. So yeah, sooner or later, you're going to have so many habitats everywhere that have no other function but to crank out pops for your more important structures, such as Ecumonopeleis, but more importantly, ring worlds, because that is your end game. Now, in this particular case, I got very, very lucky. I managed to get mega engineering only 20 years past the first century. You can get it a lot sooner than that if you play more optimally. This is only an illustration, of course. But yeah, getting mega engineering up and running, in addition to getting ascension perks +1, means that you can start getting those derelict mega structures online or build them yourselves. I do highly recommend trying to get the mega shipyard. It is by far the cheapest and the quickest one to build, but at this stage, once the slots unlock, it's time to go for evolutionary mastery and unlock those special trait points that you can get. And as we get the wonders of evolutionary mastery and genetic resequencing, it's also usually a good idea to follow that one up with the wonders of master builders, because it will improve our megastructure per build speed by 50%, which is always good to have. You definitely want to have that. In addition to that, we can now upgrade our derelict matter decompressor, which is going to give us a gargantuan amount of minerals just in time for all our basically districts on our Ecumonopeleis to come up and running. Ecumonopeleis are incredibly hungry for minerals, especially the alloy districts. They consume an insane amount of minerals, and having a matter decompressor on standby is incredibly helpful. Do be aware, however, that a matter decompressor does have an upkeep cost of energy, so make sure your economy is up to spec. But once you've produced enough consumer goods, of course, then you can start flipping up around your trade policy to a marketplace of ideas, just so that you can get more and more unity to finish off your final tradition trees, which is rather nice. And then you can start looking towards your species and optimizing them for the end game, because the end game is coming. You're basically already in it, and I'm sure the Khan is gonna awake sooner or later, but that doesn't matter, because at this point, you're cranking out so many alloys and so many consumer goods, and you're so far ahead of the technological base than anybody else, you can most likely crush them relatively easily. And there you have it, the matter decompressor is online, 2200 minerals. It does cost us 100 energy per turn, or at least per month, the upkeep, but it's totally worth it, because we are never going to run out of minerals ever again, and we can just sell any excess minerals to offset our economic impact. But at this stage, the galaxy is, in fact, your oyster, and it's ready to be opened up, because you, of course, got yourself galactic wonders and a giant amount of alloys coming in every month, as well as a dozen, if not more, habitats that are all maxed out and ready to go and are cranking out pops ready for your first ring world, which you can build even more of later down the line, and you will have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pops that will be able to crush anything that comes in your general direction. Playing tall, from this moment onwards, you can do whatever you want. We're not done just yet, because there is another version of playing tall that is available, and sadly it's only part of Federations, which is of course the Void Dweller Start. The Void Dweller Start is rather curious, so let's dive right into that and see what are the big differences there compared to this planetary habitat mix. Now, Void Dwellers are rather notorious for their insanely tall build structure. They can live on the surface area of a dime if they really wanted to, and, well, if you look at all the habitats that they have here, it's pretty straightforward that they can basically live anywhere, and that has to do with the fact of their special bonuses that the species get at the start of the game, which is the habitat preference and, of course, the Void Dweller bonus, which basically means that all of their resource outputs are plus 15%, which is a absolutely massive amount and cannot be understated. In addition, I've also made them fertile, robust, and industrious, which means that they will just crank out resources like nobody's business. But the general idea is the same here. You start off building alloys, going for a tech rush, making sure that you have all your tech districts up and running, making max use out of those, and then from there onwards, just crank out alloys, crank out everything you need, and basically conquer the universe. The Void Dwellers are very much a very small footprint type of origin. You should definitely try them out. The main concern that you may run into is the issues with food, and which is why you want to get to Ringworlds as fast as possible, because Ringworlds, of course, have the wonders of the agricultural districts, which will generate all the food that you will ever need. But in the meantime, though, your habitats will need to generate their food, which can be rather frustrating. Thankfully, they do get a little bit of a bonus here because, well, their hydroponics farms do produce a reasonable amount of food for you to use. You just need to dedicate some habitats to that. I want to thank Skillshare, but also my patrons for making this video possible. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a comment or a like down below, and if you didn't, feel free to leave a comment down below as well on why. Did I miss something? Maybe it was something along those lines. Who knows? In the meantime, though, if you need more Stellaris in your life, I've curated a couple of videos for you to enjoy right on your screen right now. Go ahead and click on one of these and go enjoy yourself. Until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, play tall. It's one of the funner ways to play.